Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us for special episode number 100 of the Trusted Advisor. And we're going to celebrate by having on another great conversation with an RSPA member. I mean, it's worked for the first 99 episodes featuring our members. Why should we change now? So in this episode, our topic is sales, specifically building relationships and making sales. And our guest today is someone who knows not just a ton about that topic, but has lived it every day for over 20 years. Please welcome to the RSPA Trusted Advisor podcast, episode number 100, the Vice President of Sales for distributor BlueStar, Rob Dorsey. Hey, Rob, always a pleasure to talk with you.
Oh, pleasure's mine. Truly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim.
No, appreciate it. And great to be talking with you in this format. So to our listeners and viewers, what we're going to do today is take the words of two sales experts and have Rob, who's a retail IT channel sales expert, help us connect those philosophies and best practices to our industry and through his own personal experiences. So what I'm going to do is share quotes from two great sales books. The first is The Trusted Advisor by David Maister. That's a good one. You can see I have all sorts of bookmarks on here, those of you watching on YouTube. And then I have New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg. That's another good one. Believe me, I have notes galore on this, just not as many bookmarks. And so we're going to pull out some of those quotes and get Rob's thoughts on that. It feels like a game show kind of, doesn't it, Rob? But you're going to win because you're the only contestant.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's I've read the questions. Thank you in advance, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue for sure.
Awesome. All right. So the first quote comes from the Trusted Advisor. It says, yes, you do actually have to care if you want to be a trusted advisor. If you want to merely be a vendor, you don't. And so one thing that jumps out to me when I interact with you and the BlueStar team is really a genuine passion for the channel. So can you talk about how important that passion is to make you effective in sales and make sure building the relationships, right? People can actually tell that you actually care about them and about the industry. So talk about passion.
Yeah, the passion's there. And one of the key words that you brought up in just reading the question is trusted. And on the ride in today, I was thinking about that term of trust. And that's where the root of the entire basis of a relationship is. It's built on trust, and trust is honesty, commitment, being on time, simple stuff like that. And once you have that trust, you nurture that trust over time. And if you're doing it right, the other party that is trusting you has the same understanding and passion and feel that you do, because if you've done your job, you've imparted that passion onto them. And they can feel that, hey, this guy's like me, this gal's like me, we have similar goals, success, and the trust model is everything.
Got it. And you said about being on time. Can you talk about that, small thing? Because let's be honest, salespeople oftentimes have the reputation that they might be a little disorganized, they might kind of fly by the seat of their pants, things of that nature. But being on time is a way to build that trust and show that they're important. Can you talk about that a little bit more and how that kind of shows your passion and shows that you care?
Well, it's a small thing. I think COVID, this last few years, has taught us one thing. When you're stacking up 30-minute calls back to back to back to back all day, there's an anxiety about being late. And if you allow that anxiety to kind of fuel you and keep you from being late, it's a real simple concept. I am as guilty as being unorganized and late as the next sales guy, I promise. But I can honestly say it's one of the things that I've been trying to be better at. And you know what? It helps in the trust model. It's the small stuff. It's not the big stuff. I did this big sale. Who cares? All right, what's the condition of your heart? And if they can see the condition of your heart, you're going to build trust. And being on time is one of those really core hallmarks.
Yeah, Dean Smith, the legendary basketball coach at University of North Carolina, he said something to the effect of, there's nothing ruder or more arrogant than stealing somebody else's time, right? Like making them wait around for you. And that's why, like, even when I show up a minute late for something, I apologize. And sometimes people laugh. They're like, it's only a minute. I'm thinking, yeah, but it's a minute of your time, right? You definitely have to acknowledge if you weren't able to make it on time, because that does happen from time to time.
The 10-minute, an old book series, The 10-Minute Manager, talks about if you get an opportunity to sit with a CEO, and this is a very important lesson. You sit with a CEO, you may have a relationship with them, you may have a a long relationship with him, he's giving you 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes to do your job, not to catch up. So do your pleasantries quickly, get down to the point, be succinct, and respect the time. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and so talk about that. Like you brought up, we're talking about relationships as well, that you can't spend all the time just hanging out talking about boats or sports or the weather or things of that nature. Can you dive into that a little bit more for our audience in terms of how do you build rapport with somebody who maybe you've never met before without wrecking the meeting, and how do you find that balance?
We'll start on time. One, keep the topic. Pleasantries are nice. They shouldn't be too long. Um, People want to know that you relate, that you have something in common with them, whether you do or not, you find some common ground. These are all basic relationship tools. I found that God blessed us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's a ratio that's pretty common for about everyone. So respect it. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen more than you speak, and answer questions honestly, and be succinct.
Right. Yeah. If you want to build trust, if you don't know something, tell the person you don't know instead of trying to feel your way through the
Well,
situation. So,
my favorite term is I can give you my answer, or I can go back and get you the answer. Which do you prefer? And 9 times out of 10, they give me your opinion, but yeah, please do some research, come back to us. And I'm like,
yeah.
absolutely be happy to.
Yeah.
For sure.
Excellent. I guess just as a background for our audience members, before we hit record, Rob did show up on time, and we did build rapport for a little bit. You showed me a plaque that you had on your wall from when you were in Business Solutions magazine about 20 years ago. Business Solutions is where I grew up in the channel as well. So Rob's practicing what he's preaching, no doubt about it. So, all right, here's a second quote from the Trusted Advisor. It says, "Before you can help someone, you need to understand what's on their mind. The right answer is never as right at the outset as it is after it has evolved, informed by inquiry." So, can you talk about your best practices that you use to help understand what's on the other person's mind? I think you alluded to one of them before, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion. What are some other things you do in terms of to help inquire and understand what's on someone else's mind?
It's an old negotiation technique. You have your own goals when you go into negotiation, and your job is to find out what their goals are in the negotiation. So if you just take a real basic 101 from that, is you got to figure out what's on their paper. What do they have that they need to get out of that negotiation, and how can you figure out that information? You can't do it by talking to them. You have to do it by asking them questions. And you have to ask questions around what you believe is on their paper. So you're right. The outcome is very much more different than the outset. And the outset is preconceived ideas. Hey, this is what I think they have. And if you do a good inquiry, you don't have to think, you get to know. Do you always get it right? Oh, heck no. Sometimes you leave money on the table, or you leave a deal on the table. Sometimes you don't. It's just a matter of how much time do you have, how good are your questions, and did both parties come into the discussion with the ability to change their position? That's the healthiest. If someone's willing to change their position to get closer to your ideas and you the same, the outcomes are always better.
Great. And can you talk about, so you've been doing this for over 20 years. Do you prepare questions before you walk in, or is it because you have so much experience, you've seen so many different scenarios, you kind of know, like, you don't have to go through that extra preparation, right? You might do some research or find out some other things, but like, do you go with a prepared list of questions, or do you already know in the back of your head and kind of play it by ear?
I go in with notes on what I think the outcomes could be. And I usually have questions about what gaps. So how do we get there? What are the gaps? You got to identify the gaps. And a really solid answer is no. It's only 2 letters, N0, N and O. But no is very good because it's effective. It terminates something and you can move on to something else. So getting someone to yes or getting someone to no, that's the ultimate goal. I am not bright enough to show up in a meeting just wing it off the hips. I've got to have prep notes, and if I can get a brief, I get a brief. If not, I'll put down my ideas and try and have a summary of what I'm trying to get to. But yeah, I got to be prepared.
Got it. At the very least, you've got to go on their website, right? Maybe check out the person's LinkedIn profile, things of that nature to get some connection. So you're not walking in like completely cold. And then, like you said, you might see some gaps on there, some things that stand out to show where you align or things of that nature. Does that kind of describe what you do in terms of
Um,
before?
I call that setup. You have to have
Okay.
setup time, and setup time shouldn't exceed the length of the conversation. So I don't do as much of the late LinkedIn trolling or review or whatever the term is these days. But I will get prepared when it comes to the company, understand who they are, what they are, how they are, and try and have a basis of information. And if you're walking into an aerospace company to sell them aerospace stuff, you obviously don't have a conversation about automobile stuff. So you got to be at least prepared for what the topic is you're going to go after. And like I said, you got to have the notes. You got to be ready. You got to be set up for success.
Yeah, I still remember a friend of mine. He went on sales calls with somebody who was a senior, and the person went into the office, and there were just plaques of boats and stuff like that all over the place. And the guy was like, "So you like boating?" It's like, what's the person going to say? Like, "Oh no, this was here when I moved in." Like, stating the obvious. Let me ask you this before I move on to the
Yes.
final quote from the trusted advisor. So I know a lot of folks who are listening to this have been in the industry for years. And so again, you've been in the industry for years as well. Can you talk about finding the right balance when you're asking questions before jumping to, you said, like preconceived notions,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes people can give you a little bit of data and you're like, oh, I'm going to be able to fill in the rest of the blanks with this. Can you talk about how you have that right balance of making sure you're not jumping, you're like applying your experience and your expertise, but you're not jumping to, preconceived notions and prejudging at the same time?
No, God, no. That's a dangerous, slippery slope. Um, Ask questions until you know what you know, and be comfortable. And you're allowed to get it wrong. You don't have to have it right 100% of the time. How many light bulbs did Edison make before one worked? Just a perfect example. Napoleon Hill theory. But it's you just you, in your gut after this many years, a lot of the groundwork is laid for you in advance of the first question because you may know the industry, you may understand what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish on the outside, but now you need to find out what's going on the inside. So the assumption is that don't make assumptions. That simple. And,
Yep.
and work from a position of fact. And if you don't have the facts, you're welcome to fill in the DNA and see if you can understand what may be missing. But
Yep.
once again, good inquiry will give you the results you're looking for.
Yeah, you should maybe take a step outside, but you shouldn't have to make a leap.
Yep.
And you mentioned Napoleon Hill to our listeners. So Napoleon
Mhm.
Hill wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, which
Mhm.
Rob, your CEO and founder, Steve Kuntz, recommended to me, and I read many years ago. It's a different kind of book, but it
Mhm.
really has a great points in there in terms of getting people to drive and follow through. So again, to our audience, we're recommending a couple books here, but also recommend Think and Grow Rich
Mhm.
by Napoleon Hill. So, all right, final quote from the trusted advisor for you, Rob. One of the most significant rewards of a trusted advisor relationship is that in such a relationship, the individuals are most able to be fully who they are. The members of the relationship do not expend energy protecting themselves. I like that. So, and this is another quote that made me think of you. Again, you and I go back, 20 years or so. I've never seen you put on a front for anyone, right? I've never seen you be like, well, Rob was different in this situation or with this person, right? You're sincere. So can you talk about the importance of sincerity to build a relationship and then, to make sales and have an effective relationship for a long term?
A lot of our relationships in business become long-standing friendships and they become personal. Business is personal. So if you're insincere and you're personally insincere, your business life will reflect that. You've got to be sincere. You got to be who you are. I'm not polished. I don't have an Ivy League degree. I've worked for some really big companies. Gee whiz, they were great and all. Um, sure, I probably could have done something different over the last 20 years. Chose not to. It's just you got to be yourself, and everybody who knows me in the channel knows exactly where I stand. Not everyone loves me. Not everyone likes me. Not everyone hates me. I mean, it is what it is. You just have to be yourself and have some alligator skin. Be tough. Be tough about it. But when you're yourself, you can always be relied upon because they know that you're going to come through in a measured manner that is consistent, and you're rarely looking for outcomes that are outside of your wheelhouse. You're staying within what you know. I'm not a finance guy. I've got a finance team for that. I'm not a marketing guy. Of course, I'm a sales guy. I think we're the best marketing person in the world. But reality is we have a marketing team and marketing experts because, well, they're marketing experts. Well, I'm a sales expert. I want to be sincere about what I know, how I know it, and how I can help our partners grow and how I can help our community grow, especially through the RSPA and the other membership groups that we're members of. Yeah, just got to be yourself. Don't change. Don't change for anyone.
You mentioned alligator skin. Why did
Yeah.
you mention that? And maybe people who are new to the channel might be like, well, why is that so important in this industry? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't even know the name of the book. I read it probably 22 years ago, and it just talked about, and it sounds like you're wearing some type of protective cape. You mentioned you're trying to protect yourself or your image. No, that's not sincere. It's 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 resilience. Alligator skin is resilience. It's impervious to certain things. It's stronger than our normal skin or a coat or whatever. And the concept is if you have alligator skin, you're confident, you're sincere, and you're unbreakable. They can't take it from you because you've already done it. And I hope that all the owners on my staff, owners versus victims, all the owners on my staff wear that alligator skin proud. And it's just the concept being owner versus a victim. Wake up in the morning, I decide, hey, what am I going to get this day to do for me? And the victim wakes up and says, man, what is this day going to do to me?
Hmm.
That's all how you take a look at it.
I love it. And then one thing you brought up where you mentioned about sincerity and things like that. I've never heard anybody use the word like cosmopolitan to describe this channel, right? This isn't a
Yeah,
channel of like
we're blue
putting
collar.
on your, say that again?
We're blue collar channel.
Yes, very much a blue collar channel. It's not, my daughter just came to the first retail now, and she was struck at how normal people were, right? Compared to like like you might think you're going to some fine dining thing, right? And people were very much roll up their sleeves, don't put on any airs. And I said, not cosmopolitan. So I guess it sounds like you agree with that
Oh,
assessment of our industry as well.
and we work hard and we play harder.
Yeah.
And part of that play harder is that's part of our getting to know each other. That's what I want to do things with our partners, the things I do with my friends, and I
Mhm.
want to enjoy the company and love the stories and the banter. And we're not stuffed shirts. We're not buttoned up our ties on so tight we can't even think. Um, do we let our hair down a little bit too much? Me personally, no, I don't have any. But I think sometimes we get a little bit too relaxed. And once again, if you're hanging out with your friends, you can be relaxed. And you
Yeah,
don't pretend to be someone else with your friends.
my college basketball coach, Bob Duquette, for those on YouTube, he's in the plaque that's behind me, the team photo. He always said, like, I don't like cool guys. I don't like guys who think they're cool, right? And that was always his big thing. He just wanted guys who were more lunch pail on his roster. And I guess, yeah, that maybe that's why I feel comfortable on the channel because my coach couldn't stand it. He didn't recruit cool guys. So,
No,
uh,
no recruiting the cool guys. I hear you. I hear you.
no, no. All right, so that is the trusted advisor. But before we move on, let's pause here to let our listeners and viewers know about the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Obviously, we're letting our listeners and viewers know, not Rob. He's totally familiar with it. So the
A little bit.
RSPA is North America's largest community of VARs software developers, vendors, and distributors in the retail, restaurant, grocery, and cannabis verticals. The RSPA is a perfect fit for any organization that's serious about growth in those markets. And an RSPA membership has never been more valuable or more affordable. Annual memberships start at just $250 a year. That's 68 cents a day for VARs, and just $300 a year. That's 82 cents a day for software startups. Accelerate your success in the retail IT channel by joining the RSPA community today. Also, thanks to our sponsors who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our gold sponsors are CoCard, Heartland, ScanSource, and Star Micronics, and our platinum sponsor is also Rob's employer, BlueStar's. So thank you to our sponsors for their support. To receive the benefits of an RSP membership or RSP sponsorship, email membership at gorspa.org. Finally, registration is now open for Inspire 2024, the Retail IT Channel's premier leadership conference. This year's event is set for January 28th through 31st in Puerto Rico. Register today at gorspa.org/inspire and experience networking nirvana. All right, Rob. So let's move on now to New Sales Simplified. And the full title is The Essential Handbook for Prospecting and New Business Development. So, first quote I want to share says, it's a long one. Your mindset matters. You are an important business person representing a company whose product or service potentially delivers great value to the prospect you are targeting. Once we view ourselves as professional problem solvers instead of just salespeople, this perspective should make us all want to call on target customers. I'm curious. I want to hear your take. What is your take on having that kind of a mindset in sales?
Um, it's a little obscure. The question's too long. You were right.
All right.
But what I tell my team is nothing happens quickly, and be aware of loyalty that turns quick for you, because it's going to turn against you just as quick. So when it comes to the complete package of going after a partner and keeping them, I tell my team it's the long play. You've got to find out, and you don't know today, just like your comment earlier, the beginning of the conversation, you don't know what the outcomes will be till you get to the end of the conversation. You obviously have more knowledge by the time you get to the end. Now make that a 5-year long conversation. And you're going to have to build the story over multiple visits, multiple calls, follow up and follow through, and deliver results best you can without the business. Then you win the business. Now you still got to deliver. It is a long play. And if you're doing it right, you're learning it every step of the way. And the knowledge is like math. You learn how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then everything gets really difficult after that. Same concept. You've got to build on everything from $1 and idea one till you get to the place where you feel you want to be with that partner. I thought about this over the weekend leading up to this call, and I can think of about a dozen examples where the partners we have today who are the most loyal are only there because they spent enough time to help us earn the loyalty.
Got it. So that's interesting you say that, where in this industry, you really have to have a long-term mindset, right? Like we say that when we're recruiting members for the RSPA, we don't want somebody to, hey, I've got the money, I've got the budget. And we're like, well, it's really not the right fit for them, but hey, we want to boost up our membership numbers. We want to make sure it's the right fit for them and make sure it's a right fit for us, because if you have somebody who's in, that you add on as a vendor, even though you might make some money off them, if they're not a right fit, that's going to kind of, I would say, rock the boat or take you off track or whatever the cliche would be. Is that kind of how you're seeing it as well? Like you have to think about long term, or else you're going to be in trouble in this industry.
Yeah, the channel is not fast food. You just don't wait in line 4 minutes and complain because they made you pull up and wait for your bag. Mm-hmm. The channel is a long play, and nothing you do short term here really applies. And you just brought up a good example. We bring on a new vendor at BlueStar, and we go out of our way to help them understand, hey, my team doesn't know your product the way your product team knows your product. Mm-hmm. When we get to that level of knowledge, you'll see our sales rapidly accelerate. And I probably have 35 examples over the last 20 years of bringing on a brand and really not doing a whole lot the first couple of years. And now they're some of our top 10 partners. And it's because once we learn the DNA and we can then impart that knowledge onto our partners, it allows us to just be that much more indelible, not only with their brand, but with our customers, because we become a trusted advisor. Yeah. We become the guy who knows the answer to the question. Yeah. And that type of consistency is what was driven BlueStar for the last 23 years, or if in Steve's world, 35 years.
Yes. We tell a lot of ISVs who we work with that are just, getting into this space, don't play the channel hokey pokey. I'm going to go get VARs and I'm going to ignore VARs and I'm going to come back and come on VARs. Like, you have to start planting seeds now, and things are going to bloom later. It might not take as long as a tree to grow, but it's certainly not, like you said, fast food or instantaneous or putting in the microwave and you've got something formed. You have to take the long-term view.
Mhm.
All right, next quote from New Sales Simplified says, "Is there a greater sin in sales than boring your audience? We've all had the experience of being presented to by a salesperson. Salespeople consistently fail because they can't tell their story effectively." So, Rob, you've never been boring, at least in my experience, and hopefully our listeners are feeling the same way
I hope
as
so.
well. And so I'm curious, like, is that intentional? Or is it just natural, right? That you're upbeat and like even in this podcast, people have heard you've used a lot of different analogies and colorful language, right? It's not just a boring, same set of words. So is that intentional? Is it natural? Combination of both?
I think it's because I'm ADD. We'll just leave it at
Okay.
that. No, honestly, I'm a very optimistic person. I just believe that there's the brightest, sunniest day hasn't yet come. Um, I've told my sales team for the first 20 years, our biggest customer, we haven't found him yet. Keep working. And as long as we just keep that optimism in front of us, it'll reflect in your speech, your tone, your creativity, your energy. I had the pleasure at Vartech of being on one of the panels, namely for digital signage, and it was an awkward panel. I'm going to tell you, I sat on an awkward panel.
Okay.
Um, it was only awkward because all four of the other people, five total on the panel, we're all really good friends, and we're all subject matter experts in our own right in each one of our verticals. We had three manufacturer reps, and a software, and then myself distribution. Um, the comments I got afterwards from the members in the audience, and a lot of them I knew real well. A few of them I had never met before. Of course, Vortex's busy. I don't always get to know everybody. They said, "You guys were really entertaining to watch because you played each other."
Yeah.
And we can tell that when you guys are after work, you guys hang out and have fun together, don't you? I said, I have had a lot of fun with everyone on that panel
hmm
around the world. So you just have to, it goes back to sincerity. If people can see the condition of your heart, they're more likely to trust you and allow you to see the condition of their heart. It's a real simple play. And as long as you're not using it for evil and you're using that for good, the outcomes should only be positive.
Yes, I think Michel Serwak, president of Blue Star Canada, he said, we're in the B2B world, but it's P2P, it's person to person. You have to take a genuine interest in that person. Like you said, also thinking about them, and we have this on the RSPA blog, there's people who are energy elevators and there are people who are soul suckers, right? And you have a choice to go down one path or the other, right? Thinking about that other person, like you said, are you going to be optimistic and uplifting and elevate their energy? Or are you going to be someone who just kind of unloads on them or really just doesn't have much to say? And that's a choice in life in terms of how you're going to impact that other person.
Yeah. But I'm certain I have had my moments where I've been plenty boring.
Sure, we're all human. There's no doubt about that. So,
Absolutely.
all right, final quote we'll discuss. It says a compelling, differentiating, client-focused story is a prerequisite for new business development sales success. Prospective customers are not interested in what you do; they are only interested in what you can do for them. So, what are your thoughts on having a clear, client-focused story to tell?
I don't totally agree with that. I believe I even
Oh
mentioned that
yeah.
to you. I replied. Um, Sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes if you're going to be selling through storytelling, which is a very effective, you make sure your story is on point. For example, earlier I mentioned you're talking to aerospace, don't talk about automobiles, makes sense. If you're talking to a CEO, you only have a certain amount of time. Don't waste their time. Being on time being the key. It plays right into here. Sometimes you don't have the story that connects. And that's why sometimes it takes longer to make that relationship start. I can't tell you the number of partners that are loyal to Blue Star now that for the first 10 or 15 years had nothing for us. We weren't public, we're not big and shiny, you don't know our numbers because we don't report on the third or fourth week of a new quarter, our earnings from the previous year. So we're kind of a hidden story. So relating to those partners, today it's about robotics. Today it's about what technology is taking us to the next level. Is it AMR? Is it actual robotics picking, packing? Is it automation, photo eye sensors? You never know what story is going to resonate with the person you're speaking with. So you've got to test the waters. You've got to go in there with a few ideas and see read the room. Nonverbal communication is my favorite type of communication because it tells me, is the message accepted or is the message falling flat? And if it falls flat, you got to pivot. And if you don't have a backup of those sincere stories about what's in it for me with them, what's in it for me, and that's for the customers. How am I going to benefit from this relationship with this partner? Can they improve my earnings, improve my efficiency? Can they change the outcomes for my team, giving them more time and less setup? You never know. You just have to explore it. And when you get there, you have to be prepared to address it, and hopefully you hit the right chords.
So thank you for that. And it's interesting you say that. My final question for you will be something we talk about here internally at the RSPA is don't assume that there's a fit, right? Just because you're talking with somebody, don't say, oh, like for in our situation, we're going to be the perfect community for you. Because I'm on the receiving end of sales pitches on a regular basis. I remember one saying like, man, what we do, it's going to be perfect for what you need. It's going to save you so much time. I'm thinking, well, how do you even know, right? And if you're going in with that mindset, instead of saying, well, let's explore to see if this could be a good partnership, they're already walking in just looking for the data to try to cram the thing together. It sounds like that's what you're saying when you go in to you're like actually genuinely open-minded in terms of, is this a fit now or later, or who knows, but you're not going to force a situation. It's got to be something that benefits them and benefits you, if I'm understanding that correctly. Like having that mindset going in, we're going to discover if it's a fit rather than I'm going to do whatever it takes to show that it's a fit.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of facts to what you just said. I've got a lot of partners, and I thought about this on the drive-in today as well. I've got a lot of partners where I'm really super close, where we talk about our wives and our children, our grandchildren together, and we've had personal experiences hunting and horseback riding hundreds of miles away from civilization, and sometimes we just don't become a good partner of theirs, but yet we're still very good friends. It doesn't always have to fit. Sometimes, like I said, no is a very powerful answer. And the salesperson that masters the use of the word no is the best salesperson you'll ever meet, because they understand what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and they know how to defer. For example, I can give you my answer, or I can get you the right answer. Mm-hmm. Which one would you like? And it still takes me the 27 years I've been in the channel before BlueStar, and then including BlueStar, I've had to evolve every year and change my opinions of the way I do things. And I look back at young Rob going, wow, you were impetuous. You didn't know much. I started at BlueStar, I was 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And I started with the same executive team at the same time. And we've all been together that long.
Yeah.
We've all been together a lot of years. And the no BS is fact, because we know each other all that well. And it's just, you got to be able to roll with the punches and pivot.
Yep. Yeah. If you're not willing to adapt to this channel, you're not going to stay around for a few decades.
No, oh goodness, no. And I think there's only about 500 business cards left. All the rest have been recycled so many times.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to learn more best practices for VARs and ISVs in the retail technology industry, check out the RSPA blog. You can find it at gorspa.org and then clicking on RSPA blog. Before we go, big thanks again to Rob Dorsey for sharing his wisdom with us today and for celebrating episode number 100. Thanks also to RSPA Marketing Director Chris Saunders for his production work on all 100 episodes. Also, thanks to Joseph McDade for our music. And last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail technology ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, please visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. And goodbye, everybody.